die of boredom? The Oxford University Press claims that you could die earlier if you see life as boring. One of the most popular phrases of this generation is, "I'm bored," according to the researcher Douglas E. Rice. Why are we bored? Why are activities that have entertained past generations, like reading or playing a board game, so boring? A generation differentiates groups of people by a span of 20 to 30 years, and my generation is unique because of the rise of digital media and technology. Kids are used to being instantly and limitlessly entertained. They can switch from a wide array of electronic amusements at a click of a mouse or a swipe of a finger. They now use the word boring to describe what their grandparents and parents used to like doing. Previous generations did not have or were inexperienced with digital media. But nowadays, digital media can be found in almost every household. Digital media affects our need of stimulation. Stimulation is what keeps you interested. Old movies were quieter, slower, and more dramatic. Movies nowadays are louder, flashier, and they have more special effects. This shows that kids nowadays want more stimulation than they did in past generations. And to satisfy this need on a daily basis, kids need to multitask on their devices. So they can be gaming, texting, listening to music, and chatting with their friends at the same time. Why is this important? Media trains our mind to seek entertainment that doesn't require effort. This means that people no longer have to exert effort into what they see, think, hear, or feel. And they use slang like veg out or couch potato to describe this state of being a mindless vegetable. And most kids nowadays can't sit for long periods of time doing an activity that would be seen as boring, but they can sit for as long as they possibly can on their devices. Reading provides the same stimulation as gaming, but the only difference is related to effort, because you need effort to imagine. In reading, you have to imagine the characters, the plots, what's going to happen, the setting, and how it's going to happen. But in a game, it's already there. You just have to swipe and click, and it's started. And I think the problem between people who appreciate reading and people who think that reading is boring is that people who think reading is boring don't want to visualize, because the more you're being exposed to media, the lazier and more incapable you become of imagining. So people nowadays don't want to imagine. Media also affects our ability to think of important questions like what is good and what is beautiful. My generation has been interested in surface level concepts like being famous like the celebrities that they idolize. They use the media to learn useless information about these celebrities, like where they dine, where they buy their clothes, or where they're going to perform next, instead of information that you're actually going to need in life, like world history. I learned that in the US in the 1900s, kids and women fought for their right to vote and won their right. But nowadays, some women in some countries are not allowed to pass on their citizenship to their child. And I know that this is wrong because I know my history. And teens are missing out on their history. This means that we're losing our history. So for the sake of keeping it, I encourage people to learn this. How can we move back? How can we go back to understanding the true value of things? How can we reverse our direction or redirect it to appreciating great, beautiful works and not calling them boring? We have to be brave enough to try an activity that's not on an electronic device. Reading books, for example, are being forgotten pieces of art. They teach us about the world around us by setting up situations in which real-life judgment and decision-making is required. And I had a different perspective about the world after I read The Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. It taught me that, as well as small moments that bring people joy, suffering and sadness and pain is a part of life. And teens are missing out on, people nowadays in this generation are missing out on this information because they think it's boring. And this information enables us to become deep thinkers, thinkers who go beyond the surface level. And this means that this generation is becoming a generation of surface level people. According to Douglas E. Rice, the person I mentioned before, He says that whether something is boring or not depends on your perspective. To prove this theory, he gave the example of the standing kids. A group of scientists tested this theory on two groups of kids. Group A was told to stand as still as possible for as long as possible. The average kid lasted only about 2 minutes. But Group B was told to do the same thing, but with a slight addition. They were told to pretend that there were soldiers on guard. Guess how long the average kid lasted? 11 minutes. This shows how perspective can alter whether something is boring, your experience of whether something is boring or not. This muse for curiosity, as Rice puts it, can be found in all these boring activities, and it can only be found when it's searched for. So before you say something is boring, try seeing it in a different perspective. We use boring to define an entire world of beauty and adventure that we're missing out on. And many people envision moving forward with technology and becoming more advanced people who use robots in their everyday lives. But I say that we move back to a time of simplicity when electronics do not take over our lives, because we're losing great, beautiful works. And we're moving forward, but in the wrong direction. So I suggest that you try boring, and it may be fun. Thank you.